Today we're covering Antarctica. Inshallah, this is the last chapter. We're going to be covering today landforms of Antarctica, and next week we're going to be covering life in Antarctica, and this is the end of this term. We already started this lesson in the class, but let me revise the first part for online students, then we can complete. Let us summarize the first part. We said that Antarctica is south of the Tropic of the Capricorn, and it is very far away islands from the warm, sunny islands of Oceania. So you can predict that the weather will be very cold. It has ice sheets. It has a kind of a difficult, extremely difficult, harsh life style. And some people didn't know that we have life or that life exists there. And geographers confirmed that Antarctica, in fact, is a continent, not a mass of floating ice. So Antarctica is considered as a continent. So if we are talking about Antarctica, we'll start talking about the size. Then we'll talk about rock, ice, and water. Then we'll move to the landform bodies of water if we have any. Then we're going to be covering other aspects. So let's start by the size of Antarctica. Who can start reading? Size of Antarctica. Hannah, go ahead.
Okay. Antarctica is the world's fifth largest continent. It is larger than either Australia or Europe, and it is about 1.5 times the size of the US. Antarctica is located in the southern hemisphere and is surrounded on all sides by the Southern Ocean. Together, Antarctica and the Southern Ocean cover about 7% of Earth's surface. However, very few people reside, even for a short time, within these millions of square miles. The South Pole is located near the center of the continent.
So let me explain this part. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent. Okay, it is even larger than Australia or Europe because Australia is the smallest continent. Antarctica and the Southern Ocean cover about 7% of the Earth's surface. So this is its size. But however, it is very big, but there are very few people living there, and even life started there for a short time. And millions of square miles in the South Pole are located near of the center of the continent. If this is the size of this continent. What about having water, ice, there, rock, the nature of the land there? Okay, who can read? Rashwan, go ahead.
Rock, ice, and water.
Yes, please.
Antarctica is called the highest continent because it has the highest overall elevation of any continent. Antarctica's surface is an average of 7,000 feet, 2,134 meters above sea level. This figure measures the height of visible surface of the continent, which is mostly solidly packed ice, while some of Antarctica's mountains rise above the ice. Most of the land that makes up the foundation of the continent is much lower than the dense ice layer that covers it. In fact, the weight of so much ice has forced some of Antarctica's surface land far below sea level. Entire mountains are completely buried under layers of ice. It might be difficult to believe, but the ice sheet covering most of Antarctica is 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers, thick in some places. An ice sheet is a thick layer of ice and compressed snow that forms a solid crust over an area of land. This vast ice sheet covers about 98% of Antarctica's surface. Scientists estimate that 2/3 of all fresh water on Earth is frozen in the Antarctic ice sheet. But it's important to remember that land lies beneath this ice sheet. By using high-resolution satellites and other specialized equipment, geographers have learned that Antarctica is one large landmass that has also an archipelago of rocky islands. Many extremes of high and low elevation can be found across this frozen land. The highest point on the continent is Vincent Massif, which measures an incredible 16,066 feet high. The Transantarctic mountains stretch for 2,200 miles across Antarctica. This enormous mountain range divides the continent into two regions, East Antarctica and West Antarctica.
Yes. Before we proceed more, who can tell me from this part what are the most visible physical features that we can see here? What kind of land that Antarctica have, and what are the physical features that we can see here? Judy, go ahead.
There are mountains like the Transantarctic,
Antarctic mountains.
yes, and enormous mountain ranges that divide the continent into two regions, East and West Antarctica.
Okay, this is one physical feature. What about other physical features that you can notice there, such as you can find
Clear
ice
water,
sheet,
lakes,
yes,
uh,
is that you can
um,
also find mountains buried but under the thick layer of ice. Here we're going to be talking about three different landforms, or not landform, physical features: the ice shelf, the calving, and the iceberg. Okay, who can continue reading? Let's see. Uh, okay. Reem, go ahead.
Okay. Um, the lowest point on the continent is deep with a apparently subglacial trench. This low area is also the lowest place on the surface of Earth that is not under seawater. Ice not only covered the land in the ice sheet, but also extends out into the ocean in what are called ice shelves. An ice shelf is a thick slab of ice that is attached to a coastline but floats on the ocean. It is a seaward extension of ice sheet that forms a thick, hard plain of ice. During the dark winter months, temperature falls to unbelievable lows in Antarctica. The air and water get so cold that the seawater next to the ice shelves freezes. This increases the size of the ice shelf. So much coastal water freezes into the ice shelves that Antarctica appears to double in size every winter. As the weather warms during the spring and summer months, part of the ice shelves farthest away from the land break up into huge flowing islands of ice. Complete?
Yes, complete.
A process of ice breaking free from an ice shelf or glacier is called calving. The large chunk of ice that breaks off is called an iceberg. Icebergs are made of fresh water, not salt water. These massive bodies of ice slowly drift through frigid ocean waters, with only their top portions showing. As much as 90% of an iceberg remains underwater. Because most of their mass is hidden below the water surface, icebergs appear much smaller than they really are. This has led to accidents when ships have come close to what appeared to be small chunks of ice floating on the surface, but then crashed into the icebergs in a mess, unseen bulk under the water. Icebergs are classified as chunks of ice larger than 16 feet across 5 miles, while many icebergs are the size of houses and mountains. Some are the size of small islands. Satellite images show a huge crack in an Arctic glacier that could produce an iceberg of 350 square miles, the size of New York City.
All right. So here we can notice that we have three different physical features in Antarctica. The ice shelf, which as you see is a thick slab of ice that's attached to a coastline but floats on the ocean. We have decalving, which is caused by the hand breakup into huge floating islands of ice. This process of ice breaking free from the ice shelf or glacier is called calving. And also the large chunk of ice that breaks is called iceberg. These are very visible in Antarctica. So you'll tell yourself that I don't have many land physical features or landform, but you can find other natural features there. Okay, complete Yarim, the last part. Antarctica is
Okay. Antarctica is surrounded by stormy seas. These include the Weddell Sea, the Scotia Sea, and the Amundsen Sea, the Ross Sea, and the Davis Sea. These icy waters were named by and for explorers and scientists who have mapped and studied in the region. In recent years, hundreds of new species of marine animals have been discovered in the mysterious depths of these cold seas.
so you can find also some seas such as the Stormy Sea, the Weddell Sea, the Scotia Sea, and the Amundsen Sea, the Ross Sea, and the Davis Sea. And he said that all of these seas are icy water and they were named for their explorers. Okay, let's talk about the climate and the resources. What kind of a climate there? Nano, go ahead.
How would you like to live in a place where summer brings a high temperature of only a few degrees above freezing? A dry, frigid climate. Because of its high latitude, Antarctica never receives direct rays from the sun. Even when the southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, thus, the sun's energy is spread out over a wider surface area than at lower latitude places such as the equator. The result is that very little heat energy reaches the surface of the land. In addition, being south of the Antarctic Circle, most of Antarctica receives no sunlight at all and is completely dark for at least 3 months of the year. And the high elevation across Antarctica affects its climate, as well as strong, fast winds blow colder air down the high interior lands toward the coasts. These powerful gusts, called مش عارفة إيه winds, are driven by the force of Earth's
Katabatic wind.
gravity. Katabatic winds are driven by the force of Earth's gravity. All of these factors combined produce an intensely cold climate. Temperatures are coldest in the interior highlands and warmest near the coasts. Antarctica also has an extremely dry climate. The continent receives only 2 inches to 4 inches of precipitation each year. The extreme cold makes the climate even drier by limiting the amount of moisture the air can hold. This effect, combined with the lack of precipitation, makes Antarctica the world's driest continent. Antarctica plays a vital role in maintaining the global climate balance. The millions of square miles of ice covering Antarctica act like a giant reflector. The white, smooth surface of the ice shelf reflects sunlight. An estimated 80% of the solar radiation that reaches Antarctica is reflected back into the upper atmosphere. So this continent-side reflector reduces the amount of solar energy that is absorbed by Earth. On such a large scale, this effect lowers the overall temperature of the entire planet.
So here you'll find what kind of a climate does Antarctica have and how does Antarctica participate to overall to lower the temperature of the entire planet. These are the two questions here. First, I want someone to describe what kind of a climate that Antarctica have. What kind of a climate that Antarctica have? Osama? Osama Gizi. Osama's not here. Okay, Hannah Hamdi, what kind of climate did Antarctica have?
It has a dry climate. It never receives direct rays from the sun. Even when the southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun's energy is spread out over a wide surface area than at a lower latitude places such as the equator.
Thank you very much. And it has the katabatic winds, which are very important. They are driven by the forces of the Earth's gravity. Okay, the next question, how does these factors, when they are combined, they are affecting lowering the overall temperature of the planet? Judy, how does it affect lowering the
Miss,
temperature?
can you repeat?
Can you hear me, Judy?
Oh, well, your voice is kind of lagging.
Again, how does this kind of a climate, or how does Antarctica plays an important role in order to lower the overall temperature of the entire planet? What's its vital role in maintaining the global climate balance?
No, I don't understand the question.
Again, what's the role of Antarctica planet in, or the vital role of maintaining the global climate balance? Someone else can answer this question. Let's see.
طب بس خلاص I know.
Go ahead يا جودي.
Millions of square miles of ice covering Antarctica act like a giant reflector.
Mhm.
The white smooth surface of the ice shelf reflects sunlight.
Mhm.
يعني the solar radiation that reach an estimated 80% of the solar radiation that reaches Antarctica is reflected back into the upper atmosphere. So the continent-sized reflector reduces the amount of solar energy that is absorbed by Earth.
All right. Thank you, Judy. You've read this part. Again, we said that millions of square miles of ice are covering Antarctica. What are they doing? They are acting as a giant reflector. They work as a reflector. This what because they are white, smooth surface of ice shelf. What do they do? They reflect the sunlight. Okay, so around 80% of the solar radiation that's coming that is reaches Antarctica is reflected back to the upper atmosphere. It reflects back, so that is absorbed by Earth and lower the overall temperature. Okay, that's the role of Antarctica in lowering the temperature of the planet. Sorry, let's talk about um, the plant and the wildlife in Antarctica. Ali Sham, please read
Yes.
plant and wildlife.
Antarctica's harsh climate limits the types of plants and animals that can live on its surface. Only 1% of Antarctica's land area is suitable for plant life. Plants found in Antarctica include mosses, algae, and
Alaya,
lichens,
legends, yes.
which are organisms that usually grow on solid rocky surfaces and are made up of algae and fungi. Only two species of flowering plants grow in the region: Antarctic hair grass and Antarctic pear root. Most plants are found on the Antarctic Peninsula and its surrounding islands. These are the warmest, wettest areas in the region. However, a few plants have been discovered in intensely cold inland areas. Scientists have found hardy species of mosses, lichens, and algae growing in the tiny cracks and pores of cracks in Victoria Land.
Hey, complete, Ali. Ali, complete.
Most of Antarctica's land animals are tiny insects and spider-like mites. Most other land animals are only part-time visitors to the region. When the Weddell seals are water animals, but they only come to Antarctica's shores during summer months to raise their pups. Many species of seabirds, such as albatross, cormorants, and gulls, visit Antarctica in the summer to breed. Only the emperor penguin stays in the region year-round. These giant penguins are adapted to extremely cold temperatures and can't survive outside of Antarctica's frozen climate.
Okay, so let me start by explaining the upper part, then we can continue. Plant life. Although, as you know, Taban, we have a kind of rocky ice land. What kind of plants can be grown there? Yani? Only mosses and lichens, which are organisms that are usually grow on solid rocky surfaces, and they are made of Elijah and fungi. So these are not real plants. They are kind of decomposers, or they are developed from fungi and the Elijah. And those two species of flowering plants grow in the region. Also, we have hair grass and berryroot, and most of these plants are found on the Antarctic Peninsula and all the surrounding islands, which are, it is a little bit warm and wet, a little bit warm and wet. Also, also, you find that most of the animals are insects or spider-like mites. Most land animals are only part-time visitors. They cannot live all the year because of the weather. You can find also seals and sea animals and penguins and other species of seabirds such as albatrosses and the gulls, but only they visit Antarctica in the summer, not the whole year. Okay? Who can complete the last part?
Miss Hawa, what's which chapter is this?
This is chapter 16, lesson 1. Who can read although the land of Antarctica? Who can complete reading? Let me see. Hannah Durgam. Hannah Durgam.
Although the land of Antarctica is not home to many living things, the Antarctica seas are filled with life. Many kinds of seals and dolphins and fish and other marine animals live in water surrounding Antarctica. Whales come to southern ocean to feed during the summer. Sea mammals and seabirds eat krill, tiny crust, Miss, what is crust? What?
Questions?
Similar to shrimp. Krills
Thrive.
thrive in water of Southern Ocean, feeding on even smaller life form called plankton. Plankton are tiny organisms floating near the water surface. Some type of plankton are single cell bacteria. Other are plants such as algae,
I like
plank Elijah, plankton, krill, and fish and sea mammals, seabirds, and land animals are part of Antarctica ecosystem. These creatures are essential part of the food chain that support animals on the continent.
so as you can see also, you'll find two other creatures are living there, the krill and the plankton. Krill is like shrimp, but a kind of shrimp that can only thrive in this harsh weather. And the plankton are tiny organisms that float near the water surface. These are the two supported kind of animals that can live in Antarctica. All right. Now we have only the resources. Who can read about the resources? Resources. Let me check كده. Okay. Yusuf. Yusuf.
Hi, SMS.
Yes, read about the resources, yes.
ماشي. Several factors make it difficult or impossible to explore Antarctica for natural resources. The harsh climate creates dangerous conditions for human workers. The land that could hold mineral resources is buried by the thick ice sheets. Even reaching the interior of the continent with heavy mining equipment could prove impossible. As a result, mineral and energy resources that might exist have not been exploited. Some species of fish are plentiful in southern oceans, and commercial fishing operations harvest fish for Antarctica's water.
All right, this is the last part. We said that several factors make it difficult or even impossible to explore Antarctica's resources. So, because number one, the harsh climate, also the land could hold mineral resources is buried under the thick ice sheet. Even reaching the interior of the continent with heavy mining equipment could prove impossible. So, as a result, mineral and energy resources that might exist have been not exploited yet. So, some species of fish are plentiful in the Southern Ocean. We also commercial fish operation harvest fish from the Antarctica's water. So kind of resources, it's hardly to be found for these three factors: the kind of climate, the kind of land, and even after mining, it might be impossible to find resources there. Okay, grade 8. You will find the homework attached, inshallah, tomorrow on the SMS. You will be answering the practice book questions. Don't forget that we have a quiz on Thursday, inshallah, on the session's time. Um, it will cover Southwest Asia, the physical geography and the history together. Also, don't forget this is the last homework we're going to be having, because after that we're going to be having revision sheets. So there is no more homework. But please, I'm gonna check the homework on Saturday, and there is no more due date. I've already given you 1 week to finish all of your late homeworks. I will not receive any homeworks after Saturday night, which will be exactly Sunday in the morning. Inshallah, your quiz topic, sorry, your project topic will be uploaded on Thursday. I already uploaded it, but I have a change in the due date. So I will, you can check the topic, but do not stick to the due date. I will re-upload it again. Anyone has any question? Anyone wants to ask any question? Okay. See you inshallah next time. Bye.